The shopping plaza was alive with the festive magic of the holiday season. Strings of twinkling lights adorned every railing, and the sweet melodies of Christmas carols spilled from the overhead speakers. At the heart of the plaza stood a towering Christmas tree, its branches laden with glittering ornaments and a star shining brightly at its peak. The air was filled with the mingling scents of cinnamon, pine, and the buttery aroma of freshly baked pretzels from the nearby food court. Amid the bustling crowd, Emma Carter, a dedicated schoolteacher and single adoptive mother, held tightly to the hand of her son, Noah Carter, an energetic and curious 8-year-old. Emma's eyes darted over her shopping list, mentally calculating their budget as they navigated the crowded plaza. She knew she couldn't afford the extravagant toys Noah had been eagerly eyeing in every shop window, but she had promised him a small treat, a cup of hot chocolate before heading home. Noah, with his unruly brown curls and bright blue eyes, was mesmerized by the sights and sounds around him. His face lit up with wonder only a child could muster, and every so often he tugged at Emma's hand to point at something exciting. As they approached the giant Christmas tree, Noah suddenly stopped, his gaze fixated on a tall man in a tailored suit standing near the crowd. "Mom," he said, his voice filled with a mix of excitement and confusion. "That man looks just like me." Emma followed his gaze, her eyes landing on Ethan Blake, a well-known philanthropist and successful entrepreneur. Her breath caught as she studied the man. Noah's observation seemed impossible, but the resemblance was undeniable. Emma's heart raced as she glanced between Noah and the man he had pointed out. Ethan Blake, dressed in a sharp navy suit, stood confidently near the stage, his presence commanding the attention of the crowd. His angular features, piercing blue eyes, and slightly wavy dark hair bore an uncanny resemblance to Noah. "It's just a coincidence," Emma muttered under her breath, trying to steady her nerves. She crouched down to Noah's level, brushing a hand over his shoulder. "Sweetheart, lots of people can look alike. It doesn't mean anything." But Noah wasn't convinced. His brow furrowed as he kept staring at the man. "No, Mom, it's not just a little alike. Look at his face. He has the same nose as me, and his eyes." Emma swallowed hard, her chest tightening. She didn't want to acknowledge it, but deep down, she couldn't deny the striking similarity. For years, she had shielded Noah from questions about his birth parents, believing that her love and their bond as mother and son were all that mattered. Yet here was a moment she couldn't simply explain away. "Come on, let's go," Emma said, tugging Noah's hand gently. "We still need to pick up that book for your school project." "But Mom," Noah protested, his voice rising, "what if he's my real dad?" Emma froze, heat creeping into her cheeks as nearby shoppers turned to glance at them. She tightened her grip on Noah's hand and guided him away from the scene, her mind swirling with unease. Noah kept craning his neck to look back at Ethan, but she didn't dare follow his gaze. Ethan, meanwhile, had been speaking to the crowd about his foundation's annual charity drive, his voice calm and polished. But something pulled his attention. In the middle of his speech, his eyes swept over the audience, pausing momentarily on Emma and Noah. A fleeting sense of familiarity washed over him, but he quickly dismissed it and continued. As Emma and Noah walked through the plaza, Noah's questions persisted. "Mom, why don't you ever talk about my real dad? Did you know him? Do you think he might want to meet me?" Emma stopped in her tracks, her expression softening as she knelt to face him. "Noah," she said softly, her voice trembling as she cupped his face in her hands. "Families aren't about looking alike. They're about love, and I love you more than anything in the world. You'll always have me, no matter what. Isn't that enough?" Noah nodded, but his wide-eyed curiosity remained, and as they continued on their way, Emma couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that their encounter with Ethan Blake had stirred something that would not easily fade. Later that evening, Ethan Blake sat in his office, the city skyline twinkling through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The events of the day should have faded into the background, yet the image of the boy in the plaza lingered in his mind. Ethan rarely paid attention to children in the crowds he addressed, but there was something about this boy, his bright eyes, his intense gaze, that felt unsettlingly familiar. "Pull yourself together," Ethan muttered, leaning back in his chair. He convinced himself it was just a passing thought, but a nagging voice in the back of his mind wouldn't let it go. By the next morning, curiosity had taken over. Ethan made a discreet call to his assistant, instructing her to gather photos and details from the charity event. When the images arrived later that day, Ethan found himself scanning through them until he paused on a single frame. The boy stood out instantly, his face caught mid-laugh, and Ethan's breath hitched. "This doesn't make sense," he murmured. Something about the boy reminded Ethan of a woman he hadn't thought about in years. Claire Thompson, a kind-hearted artist he dated nearly a decade ago. Their relationship had been brief but meaningful, ending abruptly when Claire left the city. Ethan had been consumed by his career at the time, and he had never questioned her reasons for leaving. Unable to shake the thought, Ethan contacted a private investigator. "I need you to find everything you can about Claire Thompson," he said, his tone clipped. "And if she had a child, I need to know." A week later, Ethan sat in stunned silence as the investigator delivered the report. Claire had passed away years ago, but before her death, she had given birth to a boy. The boy, named Noah, had been placed for adoption shortly after his birth. The records were sealed, but through careful digging, the investigator uncovered details about Noah's adoptive mother, Emma Carter, a teacher living in the city. Ethan's hands trembled as he read the report. The boy was his son. Meanwhile, Emma sat in her modest living room, her thoughts heavy. She had always been honest with Noah about his adoption, but she knew very little about his biological parents. The adoption had been closed, leaving her with only basic information: a young woman unable to care for a child, no mention of the father. Since the encounter at the plaza, doubts had crept into her mind. Noah's resemblance to Ethan was too strong to ignore. That evening, Emma pulled out the adoption papers she had tucked away for years. Among them was a single photograph of Claire, a young woman with soft features and a shy smile. Emma studied the photo closely, searching for clues, but there was no mention of a father. Driven by the need for answers, Emma made a call to the adoption agency. The woman on the other end was polite but firm. "I'm sorry, Ms. Carter. Since this was a closed adoption, we cannot release additional information." Emma's heart sank, but the woman hesitated before continuing. "There is a note in the file, though. It's unusual, but the birth mother mentioned that the child's father might someday want to know about the adoption. She didn't name him, but she described him as someone unforgettable." The words sent a chill through Emma. The description fit Ethan Blake too well to ignore. At the same time, Ethan stared at the investigator's report on his desk. The years he had spent focused on building his empire had cost him more than he realized. He had a son, a boy who had grown up without knowing his father. Ethan made another call, this time to his assistant. "Find Emma Carter," he said, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "I need to meet her." Emma sat in a small cafe, anxiously waiting for Ethan Blake. When he arrived, he looked far more casual than the sharp entrepreneur she'd seen at the charity event. After a tense silence, Ethan admitted he hadn't known Claire was pregnant and expressed his sincere desire to be part of Noah's life without disrupting Emma and her son's bond. Emma, though cautious, agreed to let Ethan meet Noah, emphasizing that her son was her entire world. A few days later, at the park, Emma told Noah they were meeting Ethan. Noah was nervous but excited, asking, "Do you think he'll like me?" Emma reassured him with a smile. "He'll love you. Just be yourself." Ethan arrived early and straightened up when he saw Emma and Noah approaching. He knelt down to meet Noah's curious gaze and said warmly, "Hi Noah, I'm Ethan." Noah studied him for a moment before breaking into a grin. "You're really tall. Do you want to race?" Ethan laughed and agreed, and together they raced down the park path, their laughter echoing in the crisp air. From a distance, Emma watched them, her heart a mix of anxiety and hope. Seeing Noah's happiness, she began to believe this meeting could mark the start of something positive. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and Noah began spending time together, always in casual, low-pressure settings like the park or the local library. Ethan made an effort to connect with Noah by sharing stories about his own childhood and encouraging Noah's love of learning. One weekend, Ethan took Noah to the city's science museum. Noah's eyes lit up as he explored the exhibits, peppering Ethan with questions about dinosaurs and space. Ethan, unused to being around children, found himself surprisingly engaged by Noah's enthusiasm. "You know," Ethan said, crouching to Noah's level, "when I was your age, I wanted to be an astronaut." "Why didn't you?" Noah asked, his head tilted in curiosity. Ethan smiled wistfully. "Life took me in a different direction, but watching you, I feel like I get to live that dream again." Emma, meanwhile, kept a close eye on their interactions, her initial reservations slowly giving way to cautious optimism. She saw how much joy Noah felt when he was with Ethan. He seemed more confident, more curious, and brimming with stories to tell her after every visit. One evening, Ethan stayed for dinner. The three of them shared a simple meal, laughing over Noah's animated recounting of his latest school project. As the evening wore on, Emma couldn't help but notice how natural it felt to have Ethan there. Before leaving, Ethan turned to Emma, his voice sincere. "Thank you for letting me spend this time with him. It means more than I can say." Emma nodded, her tone softer than before. "Noah loves having you around. It's been good for him." And, though unspoken, she began to realize that it might be good for all of them. Things took a dramatic turn one crisp autumn morning when Emma's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. The caller introduced themselves as a reporter, delivering shocking news. A story about Noah being Ethan Blake's son was set to run the next day. "I thought you should know before it breaks," the reporter said before hanging up. Emma's heart sank. Within hours, her quiet home became a target for the media. Reporters swarmed her front yard, shouting questions and snapping photos. "Mom, what's going on?" Noah asked, frightened by the commotion outside. Emma knelt down, gripping his shoulders. "It's nothing for you to worry about, sweetheart. Some people are just asking questions they shouldn't." Emma immediately called Ethan. "Ethan," she snapped, her voice shaking with anger and fear. "There are reporters camped outside my house, shouting questions about Noah. He's terrified, and I don't know how to make this stop." Ethan was equally stunned. "I swear, Emma, I had nothing to do with this. I'll fix it." "How?" Emma shot back. "This is already out there, and my son's life is being turned upside down." Ethan promised to handle the situation. He hired a PR team and top lawyers, working tirelessly to address the media frenzy. Despite his efforts, the chaos persisted for days. Reporters followed Emma to the grocery store, and Noah refused to leave the house, too scared to face the cameras. The weight of it all made Emma question whether letting Ethan into their lives had been the right decision. Emma stopped sending Noah to school, fearing the media would follow him. The once joyful boy grew withdrawn, spending hours alone in his room. One evening, Emma found Noah sitting on his bed, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. "Did Ethan tell the reporters?" he asked, his voice small. "No, honey," Emma assured him, pulling him into her arms. "This isn't his fault. Someone else did this to hurt him, and now it's hurting us too, but I promise, we'll get through this." Even as she comforted her son, Emma couldn't ignore the storm Ethan's presence had brought into their lives. After days of silence between Emma and Ethan, Noah surprised his mother by writing a letter. Carefully crafting each word, he poured his feelings onto the page. "Dear Ethan, I miss you. I didn't want you to leave. I know the people outside were mean, but I know it wasn't your fault. I want to see you again. Can we still be friends? Love, Noah." Emma's hands trembled as she read the letter. She saw the hope in Noah's words and couldn't ignore it. Reluctantly, she called Ethan. "Noah wants to see you," she said quietly. A few days later, they met again at the park. This time, Ethan arrived with a nervous energy, unsure if Emma would truly forgive him. When Noah spotted Ethan, he ran straight into his arms. "I missed you too, buddy," Ethan said. his voice thick with emotion. Watching from a short distance, Emma felt her heart soften. She approached them cautiously, and Ethan turned to her, his expression earnest. "Thank you for giving me another chance," he said quietly. Emma nodded slowly, her voice hesitant. "Noah deserves answers. And maybe you deserve a chance too. But this won't be easy, Ethan. I need to know that you're here for him, not just now, but always. This has to be about what's best for him." From that day forward, Ethan became a steady presence in Noah's life again. Their time together remained simple: walks in the park, quiet dinners, and shared laughter. For Christmas, Ethan gave Noah a leather-bound journal with his name embossed on the cover. "This is for all your stories and questions," Ethan said. Noah grinned. "It's perfect, thank you." As Emma watched them, she felt the beginnings of peace. It wasn't perfect, and challenges still lay ahead, but for the first time, she believed they could navigate this new path together as a family.